I just got back from Fort Knox, and I know what you're thinking. Is there really gold in those vaults? And I don't know, because I was stopped when I tried to take a photo. But Fort Knox is also home to the largest annual training event put on by the U.S. Army, Cadet Summer Training. I recently did a video on the Ohio Buckeyes Battalion and their ROTC, or Reserve Officer Training Program. If you want to watch that, I'll leave a link below. This video is going to be a little different than my usual content because I had a buddy of mine who's a sergeant major, and he asked me to come and check out training. And, it felt really important to kind of remember where we came from and how we go about building the force that I discuss in my videos. I want to show what these young soldiers do to carry us into the future. After all, we all start somewhere. So how does the Army go about training 10,000 potential recruits? Well, let's look at what actually goes into making these college students and leaders. Now, education is one important component, and so is critical thinking, which is why I use ground news. Just days after President Zelensky met with President Trump, there's supposed to be a summit between President Putin and President Trump. Guess that's not happening, and I found that out on ground news. Check this out. White House no plans for Trump-Putin meeting in the immediate future. Reuters is covering it, and if you look over here at the bias distribution, mainly left-wing organizations are covering it. There's no organizations on the right. And the reason ground news is useful is that if you don't think an article is real, for every news source, the ownership data, the average factuality rating, and the bias of each organization is listed so you know who's telling you what to think. But the most important feature is this blind spot report up here. If I click that, I can see news that was undercover on both the left and the right. For example, Health and Human Services grants violated Trump administration bans on racial preferences. No one on the left covered this at all. Or did you know that Immigration and Customs Enforcement increased weapons spending by 700%? Nobody on the right covered this. I value ground news so much I actually pay for it. They don't give it to me for free. In fact, here's my latest invoice. It's worth it because it makes me a better consumer of information. So click the link in the description below, go to ground.news/Ryan, or hit the QR code somewhere up here and get 40% of the Vantage plan, which is what I use, and start getting the whole side of every story. My producer and I had the privilege to spend 3 days at Fort Knox, Kentucky to get an up-close look at the largest training event the U.S. Army does. Now, I know there are other large training exercises like RIMPAC, which is the largest international maritime joint force exercise, but in terms of sheer numbers, U.S. Army Cadet Summer Training actually takes the top spot. It's the most soldiers that you have on an exercise at any given time. Now, who handles this massive undertaking? That would be United States Army Cadet Command. But before we talk about CST, we have to go back.
Marty! You've got to come back with me!
The U.S. Army Cadet Command was established on May 2nd, 1986 at Fort Monroe, Virginia. It was created to oversee training programs and kind of manage the U.S. Army Reserve Officer Training Corps, or ROTC, including college-level units and junior ROTC programs in high schools. Initially, it was responsible for over 300 college-level units and over 800 junior programs in high schools. So, when talking about ROTC cadets, President George W. Bush said in 2002, "For nearly 90 years, this great program has developed leaders and shaped character." And in 2014, all collective ROTC summer training, as well as Cadet Command headquarters, was relocated to Fort Knox, Kentucky. Their current mission is to partner with universities, recruit, educate, develop, and inspire senior ROTC cadets to commission officers of character for the total Army, and partner with high schools to conduct junior ROTC and develop citizens of character for a lifetime of commitment and service to our nation. Put it in more common terms here, the Cadet Command's purpose is to develop leaders of character to take on and carry the future endeavors of the United States of America. Let me give you an idea of how officers are commissioned here. For fiscal year 2024, stats show that 61% of all officers came from ROTC, followed by Officers Candidate School at 27%, and then the United States Military Academy at West Point at only 12%. Now, some of those numbers may surprise you, but to say that the program, command, and training are important to the future of the U.S. Army is like an understatement. This is no small undertaking. The U.S. Army Cadet Command brings in units from all over the United States to help facilitate and assist in training. While I was there, I believe they had soldiers from Alaska and Hawaii assisting, which is really neat because it shows this large group effect on behalf of the U.S. Army and how seriously they take their future. Cadet Command has a few short-term and long-term goals that you can categorize as commander's priorities. The short-term priorities consist of implementing ROTC rebalance and optimization, making sure that the ROTC program and cadets are properly trained and assessing their needs for the future of the program as a whole. Then there's sustaining the junior ROTC program. These are the high school kids to produce better citizens and bridge that military-civilian divide. This will help foster the public image the military has with the people that it serves. Finally, improve the resource management and develop high-performing staff processes in support of future training. In other words, make sure everything is running smoothly and make sure future events such as CST 2026 go off without a hitch. Now, for the long term, they're really looking at posturing the United States Army Cadet Command as the preeminent commissioning source for the total force. So these numbers we talked about earlier, they're going to continue to be that high for OTC. And they're going to be the #1 contributor of officers to the U.S. Army. Next, you have to prioritize nurses and medical corps. That's a long-term goal as well. We always need more medical staff, whether it's a field medic, nurse, or just the doctor at the base hospital. And sometimes that role is really hard to fill and maintain due to the sheer differences in pay and other variables compared to a civilian in a similar role. Finally, enhance the impact of scholarship investments to attract and retain top talent. While we were there, I kept forgetting that some of these cadets are just college students, and they can cover a good cost of their education and get a solid investment in their future. This isn't just a way to develop good leaders. It's actually a really good way of graduating college with zero debt and a job waiting for you on the other end. Now, before we dive into training, one final thing here to remember about Cadet Command is that they also oversee the junior ROTC program. Again, these are the high school kids, and that's like a 250,000 cadets from 1,700 different high schools. In the last 3 years alone, they established 35 new programs across the globe. That's a substantial number of potential soldiers. Junior ROTC programs maintain statuses in all 50 states, 4 U.S. territories, as well as Department of Defense education facilities in Germany, Japan, Korea, and Italy. So talk about a strong foundation there. They're taking these young kids and molding them into the upcoming force with all the assets, knowledge, and support they need to carry the torch in the upcoming decades. Now, for the actual training events that I did. Now, some things have changed since my time in, but the key fundamentals are still the foundation of how we train, fight, and win. I know some viewers may see it as like basic training light, but the focus is very different than basic combat training. In basic, the Army tends to focus on breaking individuals down and rebuilding them in the Army image. At CST, the cadre and command really focus on building cadets up with a strong focus on expanding those abilities they individually might bring to the table, as well as military prowess and knowledge they need to be successful. There's 2 separate courses that take place during summer training, and one is a basic camp that lasts 30 days and sees approximately 1,100 cadets or so across 2 regiments. This camp focuses on the basic mindset and physical needs that cadets require, as well as their foundation to pursue a career in the Army. It consists of an introduction to the Army, learning the warrior ethos, and physical readiness training. PT, the bare bones of the essential framework that every soldier needs. They also have an introduction to drill sergeants. After completing the basic course, cadets are qualified to attend advanced camp, which is primarily what we saw at the base. Advanced camp, even though it doesn't utilize drill sergeants, is a statutory commission requirement. The camp lasts 36 days and sees approximately 5,900 cadets across 10 regiments. It's comprised of rigorous training that is designed to assess leadership abilities and test the grit of each cadet attending, which is always exciting to see in younger adults. It's like they're trying to figure out who they are while proving their worth together. And the best part is the Army bringing them all together to achieve great things. Side note here, we were only there for a few days, so I only got a small look at what these cadets do day through day, but you definitely get an idea of the bigger picture that Cadet Command is creating here. The camp prepares cadets to excel in their basic leaders course, or BOLIC, and be a successful asset at their first units, whether that's through the physical training, mental exercises, or hands-on access to weapons and equipment. Speaking of, I was lucky enough to get some hands-on time with equipment as they were testing, and it brought back some of those memories. You know what they say, soldier for life, right? That mentality starts early on, and you can see that in those cadets who are going through this program. And speaking of early, they start their days bright and early with physical training. The cadets learn the ins and outs of how to conduct and perform prescribed physical training doctrine, but they also do things like rush march to their site of instruction for the day, or they go on extended runs, the usual Army PT stuff. Some of this may sound redundant to some of my viewers, but remember, these are brand new potential officers, not basic trainees. These are college-age civilians who are stepping into this new world. After their morning PT, they proceed on to instruction and exercises for the day, whether that be in the classroom or they're out in the field, various exercises like a field training exercise. And while we're there, we witnessed a confidence course, which I was much more eager than to climb myself. Confidence course puts the cadets through these various events, like a Jacob's ladder, the big tall thing you climb up and go over with only some mats under you. While the confidence courses are all pretty similar across the military, it's a good test of not just a physical soldier's ability, but like how much they really believe in themselves. Climbing a ladder, easy. Climbing a 40-foot ladder with no net takes a little more fortitude, right? The cadets also went through various obstacles, like the ladder I mentioned, like a low crawling under wire, over, under, and this thing called the Weaver that I also got to be a part of. After completing that course, cadets went straight to instruction on how to tie military rappel seat knots, also known as a Swiss seat. They learned this skill and took the time to really break it down and learn some of the fundamentals so they could be confident in the next event, the rappel wall. Cadet Command is home to a 64-foot tower with multiple sides. These cadets started out on the traditional side where you give yourself 3 jumps to kind of get to the bottom. And, of course, I had to get up there and show them how it's done. I love how I'm 50 years old and still doing this, right? I do it for the views. After they completed that first side of the tower, then the cadets move over to the other side where there's no wall, nothing, right? It's just you and the knot that you learn to tie. And this side kind of simulates what some would say is similar to Air Assault School, where you kind of rappel out of a Black Hawk or other aircraft. It's kind of interesting to see cadets, some of whom just learned this skill for the first time and now have to apply it, get up there and do it. Obviously, they have all proper safety in place. The CAD and subject matter experts, they're monitoring to ensure everyone's safety. But to go from learning to tie a knot, and then 15 minutes later, you're hanging from the tower in a knot you tied, that takes some serious confidence in your ability and equipment, which is one of the goals of the program. And then the next day, we witnessed cadets going through what they call the Field Leadership Action Course. Imagine taking a squad through various obstacles, and you kind of have to figure it all out together, but only the squad leader can talk, right? That might make it a little bit harder. The obstacles focused on teamwork while allowing natural leadership abilities to shine. Some of these obstacles are pretty basic, like crossing a gap with just a ladder and some rope, or getting an ammo crate over some barriers without touching the ground. There was a little more involved exercises like building a bridge across a gap to resupply with the squad, or get a casualty over a gap using only a rope, or get that casualty across elevated terrain. The cadre overseeing these events would every now and then throw a curveball to the cadets. For example, in the bridge building one, they were initially told to get across using only planks, and once crossing, all while not talking, by the way, because you can't be giving away your position. The cadre kept adding new variables like they had to overcome, like getting a barrel across to resupply a fellow unit. Then they had to go back and get the planks they used to take them across because another unit radioed in that they needed them to build another bridge. So each of these simulations challenged the cadets to think outside the box, and it was interesting to see how many ways these future leaders could solve a problem, as well as build the confidence to lead when there's really no clear-cut answer. All right. Now, the last thing that we witnessed was a gas chamber. And if you follow me, you already saw the aftermath here. It seems like most military creators talk about the gas chamber, but what does it really instill in these cadets? Well, the entire camp is about building that confidence in yourself, but also trusting your gear, trust your equipment. When you're on rappel or when you're in the gas chamber. If you don't trust your equipment, you're going to be fighting a losing battle. Trusting that gas mask and understanding what you can really handle is kind of the point of being a leader. It's always hilarious to see soldiers spilling out of the gas chamber with snot and spit and tears coming out, but for those of us who've been through it, it is pretty darn funny. But it shows you can trust your equipment, and it gives you that confidence in yourself, and you can breathe without burning your lungs. And speaking of trusting your equipment, my producer went in with only one filter, and he had no issues or worries. Fun fact, the gas masks you're issued are functional with only one filter on. That's not by accident. The two-filter system allows the soldier to use both filters. If they need to extend the use of the mask, they can take one filter off and save it for later, potentially extending the time a soldier can utilize the mask, which could be beneficial depending on the environment. Now, as I said, we were only there for a few days, and I only got a small glimpse into what goes on at CST. But one thing was for sure, I felt like a celebrity. Cadets were coming up to me, asking me for selfies and shout-outs. I guess once a soldier, always a soldier, right? I do want to thank Mr. Ian Ives, the media relations chief for the U.S. Cadet Command, for all his help and hospitality. He made sure we had plenty of time to grab footage and talk about the program, not only with him, but with cadets and cadre as well. The cadets did say they liked my shirt. They asked where I could get it. Lucky for them, Bunker Branding. I got my Drone Suite drone shirt right here. Get it at bunkerbranding.com. Anyway, you guys, thank you so much for watching.
In the modern age of progress and preparedness, one thing separates the professional from the amateur: appearance. That's why forward-thinking Americans choose Bunker Branding Apparel, the official uniform of those who get things done. Each shirt is precision engineered and field tested under rigorous conditions such as extended YouTube filming operations, Substack editorial duty, and the occasional internet argument. Designed for comfort, durability, and undeniable sense of tactical cool. So remember, citizens, when you're defending democracy, refueling freedom, or simply mowing the strategic lawn, Bunker Branding keeps you mission ready, wrinkle-free, and unmistakably American.